Welcome very, very much to Conversations. A pleasure to welcome to the program a dear friend over the years, decades almost now, of our association around and about the institution of public access cable television, and that's being a fellow who goes by the handle these days, Posr. Posr, welcome so much to Conversation. We've been wanting to do this for 15 or 20 years.
15 years, since 95.
Yeah,
so.
Finally.
Since we were down on 23rd Street.
Yes,
yeah.
sir, you were down there on 23rd.
Yeah.
Share with us a little bit, because I used to know you shrank
Well,
share your own background, and then we want to get into particularly you're active and have been ever since I can know you. We've had a lot of talks about the cameras in the courtroom and putting an eye on the judicial system. But share your own back. Born and raised, educated, a little bit of that.
Spanish Harlem, 1953. Across the street from Metropolitan Hospital, public school. Actually, I went upstate to boarding school for a while.
Really? Like a prep school?
It was a school for wayward youth.
Oh, I was going to say that might
wayward
be a proud
youth.
Yes, right.
Trying to find their way. And I like the grass. There was a lot of grass.
Yeah, right, and trees.
Yes, and trees. Came back. I went to the service for 9 months. Experienced some racism in the service.
In the Army?
In the Navy.
In the Navy. Only 9 months.
Only 9 months. Yeah.
Did you get an honorable discharge?
I got a general under honorable conditions.
Okay, well, that's pretty good.
You get the benefits.
That's pretty good.
You get the benefits.
I take it you weren't particularly suited for the military.
I think I was.
Okay.
What I wasn't suited for was the racism in the military.
Oh, racism. See, that's something you have to deal with, racism. I don't have that problem. I recognize it, and I'm very sensitive to it, but I'm a WASP. So it's a very privileged thing. But I hated the Army. I really was terrible.
You didn't want to be...
I was drafted. They drafted me.
You didn't like anybody telling you what to do?
Well, I don't like authoritarianism. Which is the military. I used to explain to the sergeants. I was a 19-year-old buck private. Look, fellas, let's do this democratically, and they didn't want to hear it.
They couldn't understand.
No, they didn't hear it.
Not a military setting.
I started to feel the same way about the system now, because I think the system under which the planet's operating is all the institutions are authoritarian.
Yeah, well, it's basically...
We needed some sort of liberation, I think.
Well, that's where the information comes in. I don't want to jump to the cameras, but the information, just the freedom of information, like the more you keep, then whoever's got the information is in control.
Yeah,
They're basically in control. And I mean, but you really see it with the pat down.
Yeah, right. Isn't that funny?
You really see it with the pat down.
Yeah, that's coming now. Yeah.
Now people are being subjected to what the prisoners and what criminals are being just. And what's really scaring me is the fact that people are not really up in arms about it.
I know. There's starting to be some response to it, but I don't know. That's getting to be bigger, because they could be hiding deadly weapons in body cavities and things. We may have to get down to body cavity searches. Granny, get out of the wheelchair and let us take a look. And it gets too absurd. Osama bin Laden must be laughing his head off. He's won. And they're going to take it over to the buses and the trains, and we're all worried about, you know what I'm saying?
Well, there was a whole line of thought that he was working with the U.S. anyway. I mean... that's
another thing. It could be an agent or something. Yeah, but the system is there's paranoia is very thick in the air.
Yeah, it is. But now it's getting to that body level, though.
Yeah, right.
It's getting to the body.
It's going to be great for the comics, I mean, in a way, because you touch my junk, and the guy said that.
Yeah, he did. Did you see that little commercial where the guy? I have a little Johnson. I'm embarrassed about that, and my daughter. But it's real though. It's real.
Yeah,
that little kid on there was crying.
Yeah. So, and it bespeaks a general paranoia, appropriately so, to it. And I had a friend of mine who said, we can get around to talking about things in general, the courts and all that, and everything. I love what you and Joe and Paula and everything are doing on the marijuana, medical, all this great stuff with Aldrich and all that is really good.
That's a direct, the THC reportedly cures, concentrated THC, that it cures cancer.
I know, Rick Simpson and that. I wish that could become, I guess it must be, because the medical marijuana thing has gone gone mainstream now in terms of the society. Michigan's got it, they use it. But I wish that work of Rick Simpson's could have been done and was able to be made just part of the establishment canon. Instead of it being, you know what I'm saying?
Well, without the funding, though, without the funding or without some kind of a network, it's just not, you know, you got to have that advertising push.
Well, that's a lot. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but then that's also a larger issue to where the good research or good understanding of things can't do it unless it goes through a peer review process that is going to reify or reestablish the legitimacy of a system that doesn't want something to go out because they have ultimately an economic interest in preserving the way things are.
You're not going to see a
monopoly.
Peer review.
Yeah.
You're not going to see a peer review of concentrated THC curing cancer because can you imagine what would happen to the pharmaceutical bottom line profit?
Well, then you can see what it has is an economic component, and everything can almost be seen through economic interests. And we have a system that is not adequate to what the future requires, and it's very dangerous. And I just want to throw it out quick and get away from it. But the weapon systems that have led technological extension of consciousness throughout all of human history are now species lethal. They would be able to wipe out, apparently, from the modeling, the entire Homo sapiens species if the weapons were released since about 1970. It's an existential new reality in terms of the evolution of consciousness in the universe. And so that's prima facie. It's probably subconscious, but it's a new reality that is characteristic of the time we sit and talk.
Yeah, but you know, how are you gonna get somebody to give up a weapon? You know, even if there were no weapons, then this cup would be the weapon, or this vase. You know, just humans. You know.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, we've been here 200,000 years, right? We can agree on things, and we can agree on things in terms of understanding things in terms of materialistically understanding the evolutionary process of how the world came to be in scientific terms and everything. And we've been here 200,000 years, and people will say human nature is of such and such a way, but we're now threatened with either. I think we're at a period where we're either going and throughout human. James Joyce said, history is a nightmare of injustice from which we're attempting to awaken. There's never been just in the sense of everybody being able to do it. We had slavery, we had all these kind of things, and so forth. And we're at a point now where we have the ability to destroy. We also have a technologically augmented capability of providing for everybody in an unprecedented way to where we may actually have transcended at a level of capability. Material scarcity is an ontologic reality at the level of capability. Two big things. And all of our institutions were formulated in a condition that has been qualitatively transformed. And the fact that we can destroy the whole species and join entropy, which might happen, rather than liberate. We can either annihilate or liberate. We're going to have to liberate the entire Homo sapiens species and the ecology, and the both are there for us, but we don't have vision to how we can get to the latter.
That's going to come down to education. I mean, that's
you think so? Yeah,
it has to, because the mindsets that are out. I mean, people always have. You put little kids together.
Yeah.
Who are 2, 3, 4, or whatever.
I love 4-year-olds.
Oh, they can they have their moments too.
Yeah,
They have their moments.
Yeah.
But they're gonna have differences.
Yeah.
There's gonna be differences. But how do you go into teaching? Now wait a minute. Let's not do it like that. Let's do it like this.
Yeah.
But that works though.
Okay.
Yeah. But that works.
Yeah. Okay.
That works.
Yeah.
And then you start to grow more what I would call reasonable human beings that are not so concerned with just I want, because that's the hope. I want. Now
maybe it's part of an instinctive thing, operative, and I guess a crocodile wants an antelope to eat.
Yeah.
It's sort of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But even instinctive. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you've got probably 500-600 $100,000 in your pocket, and I want it.
No, about
No?
300. Only
Right,
300 at the
only-
moment. You caught me a little short,
Yeah,
but I only
yeah.
got 300,000 there.
But I want it.
I can get it if I go to the car. Should I break the thing? You need it? You need the extra 200,000?
I could use it.
You could?
I could use
But
it.
could we break the program? Do we have to break the program now for me to go out and get the 200,000 in the car?
We'll fill it with some advertising.
It's not worth bothering.
It's not worth bothering about?
That's what we're going to have to get to a point where people are actually, listen, we're going to get to a point, if you think 100 years out or something, it's not going to be where everybody's going to be, how you going to, it's almost going to be, it's hard to imagine, but it's going to be in that nature of things that people are going to have what they need and want as a matter of course, which is now materially.
Yeah.
Just materially,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's what I think. It's absolutely essential if we continue. So that's like transcending scarcity as a reality.
Yeah.
There's always been scarce. So for me to gain, you have to lose. Zero sum, all of that. But there's been a qualitative transformation in our lifetime. And this is the defining generation in terms of evolution of consciousness in this universe.
Well, once the scarcity goes, I mean, you know.
That's a big thing. It never
Yeah,
has.
yeah,
it's always been scarce ontologically in terms of the reality and humanity and human history.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's always been. It's always been.
Like it's an existential new reality that we can now wipe out the entire species, not just steal the grain from the other tribe, realpolitik, get an economic interest in all that, and gain for our tribe, as we've been doing, and that's human history.
Well, the tribe is becoming smaller now.
Well, yeah.
You've got more interconnectedness.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got more interconnectedness. Like you really can't stop people from building weapons. Like North Korea's got that. I mean, I think they have their weapon now.
Yeah, they have a weapon. Yeah,
You can't. Somebody's going to make a weapon.
Well, yeah, but it used to be. If I may, Shankus, we're thinking about everything because we were impotent. We were protected. Even as recently as the Second World War, we were trying as hard as we could to kill. And we put it full tilt boogie. We only got a little big boy at the very end of the whole thing, but firebombing civilians, firebombing children, dropping napalm on children in order to terrorize them and everything. We had a capability where we were trying to destroy each other and kill, kill, kill with all full tilt boogie, and we were impotent at the level of species. We could just kill the enemy. But that's past now, in a sense, in terms of the actual extent. It's an existential new reality in universe, if you understand.
Yeah, well, the capability and the possibility.
Only, the point being, 10,000 generations we've been here, Homo sapiens, we're all out of Africa, okay? And 10,000 generations, and this is the defining this is the defining moment.
You know, the Incas claimed that they were just always there.
Oh, yeah, the Turtle Island and all that, yeah, but they weren't. They're out of Africa. Everybody's out of Africa. And so, I mean, we know, because we're learning more all the time, right? So we're learning in that. But I'm just sorry, I didn't get that. And so you got to have, if you got that destructive scenario as part of Homo sapiens' unique capability to extend consciousness through technology, it's got a destructive potential. It's a two-edged sword, like the Chinese warned us against living in those kind of times. We live in those times. But the other is they have the ability to liberate and provide for everybody in the world without anybody having to worry about which kid they're going to let starve to death because there's no food. We have the capability. We don't have the systems that lets us realize what we're capable of.
I'm optimistic about it, though.
Okay, I'm hoping you are. I'd like to know how we get to optimism and avoid the unleashing of the destructive scenario, which is on hair trigger alert.
Well,
and what needs to be informing and what kind of institutional changes of our system. We have to subsume history, the context of all our inherited institutions, education, notions of human nature, everything is being transformed at another level. And how do we get to that? And where is the vision or the leadership that could bring about a liberation of the entire species within an ecological context that might bring us into a new way of being, like punctuated equilibrium in evolution. You get to a steady state, and then you get to a point there's a quickening. That's atomic weapons. That's like water breaking, and we're coming into a new relationship in the universe. We don't have a vision of that.
I think Garvey said it very well. He said, if all else fails, the conditions will organize the people.
The conditions might organize the people
themselves.
to where they're going to destroy.
Well,
Where do we find vision of some sort of an altered way outside of the normal political process that doesn't seem to be working very well? What gives you a sense of optimism?
it's just, I guess I maybe have a belief that people are going to operate in their own best interest if they have the ability to.
Mm-hmm.
The pat downs are a prime example.
Right.
It is not in the interest of most people to have some stranger filling up on their body.
Yeah.
And so what you're getting backlash, and
I know.
Now, but it's within
You're smiling.
people's-
Your face is smiling
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's got inherent humor. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's also serious.
It's very,
like
very,
so
it's
most
very-
important events are. Yeah.
You know,
Two-faced.
so what do you get? You get this gigantic, backlash because everybody has the power to backlash and say, I don't like it, and they really don't like
Yeah,
it.
it is rising.
And it's changing.
Poor Napolitano.
You know.
Yeah. She's the one in charge of that. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
you.
that's
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
She may get.
Well,
may
that's the
get
issue
change of
du jour,
position.
but it's part of a larger context.
Yeah, it's the whole thing that when a lot of people don't like something,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a republic, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to think about, can I really force this on all those people?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whenever you get that situation, can we, the corporations,
Yeah.
really force this?
Corporations being, in a certain sense, the enemy du jour. The corporate state?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you see?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's
Oh, yeah.
the,
That's
against
where it's all,
the people.
That's where the
right.
control is all coming from.
Thank you.
No,
thank you.
there's no doubt.
And their economic stake in all of that, and their ability to have ownership out of the means of production.
Well, the
increasingly.
production of those machines, in
Yeah.
this particular instance, those
machine-
gigantic body
that's,
scanners.
No, but that's one part of an overall pattern that is emerging beyond just the scanning machines. It's the whole economy of the world is moving that way. Machines.
Machines,
And technology is responsible for production.
Well, you can see that just
And the assets-
in the movie industry where everything is robot friendly. Will Smith and his movie, his one arm, but everything's robot friendly.
Yeah.
Robot friendly. You know what really scares me?
I don't see it that way. Most of those movies about robots and those kind of things are where they're just some sort of enemy alien thing coming here to beat the Jesus out of it.
There's some of that, but the overall, the big trend,
Schwarzenegger.
the big. Yeah, but they had a good robot.
Okay.
They had a bad robot.
All right.
They always got this.
Yeah, we project that on, but the robotics are coming.
Yeah, they're definitely coming.
And that's a big issue that the left or the progressive or the people do not have a way of dealing effectively to get to the world we have to get to, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think it's their fault.
No, I think
the corporation's fault or the political's fault.
There's got to
It's
be
not
that
their
ownership.
fault.
There's got to be that people own. That the common people actually own.
Wait a minute. Think. They own. What do they own?
Well, whatever it is.
Well, is it all right for them to have a private property, privatized ownership of a piece of stock of a major corporation? Or is that something that the left could cotton to? Private property, privatization, all of these things that they stand foursquare against, and because the labor contribution that they're making is what they're going to get their money from, or their reward, or their wages.
There's a balancing that's going to have to happen, right?
Okay.
There's always a balancing in process. Whatever you're doing, there's always a balancing.
Well, there is thermodynamically, yeah. Or just in terms of right.
In terms of what?
Energy, relationships, and so forth. And there is a balance, and energy is never lost, and so forth. Yeah.
And so when one group has too much, then the others feel that lack that they don't have because they're probably so.
Hasn't it always been like that? At least in civilization, we don't know prehistory very well. Montague writes well on it about how it may have been more cooperative than we think. But since civilization, there's always been a few people run everything, and everybody else is like serfs on their estate.
Well, it's just
Pharaohs.
I guess I'm talking about the
kings.
idea. I guess I'm talking about the idea that, and we'll probably get into the cameras at some point.
Yeah,
I guess.
absolutely, we will. It's a big part of it.
But what I'm talking about is like a cap, some sort of a cap. Corporations cannot own more than, I don't know, $100 million or whatever it is.
That's a cap that you would like to see imposed that is not being imposed at all now. They can get as much as they can, and the left never questions the idea that it's perfectly all right for those few people to own all the assets. They don't want any ownership. They only want a job on the estate that is owned by those people.
But who are you defining as the left?
The left, well, I'm trying to think of it. Mostly it's everybody I know, and it's people who are mostly concerned for the least among us, to put it in another way, rather than only on being sycophant to the powerful or rich and powerful, which has been the case throughout most of history of sycophant courtiers and so forth. And most of the institutions are cottoning up or cozying up to the people who are rich and powerful and lead good lives. There are few people that do that in the various political entities around the world. So the people who are concerned with the least among us, as they say, or the disadvantaged and so forth, to bring equity and justice to those people that are not being served by the corporate or the political interests that run the world. That's what I mean by the people.
The left.
Or the left.
The left.
The left. I would associate intellectual. Most of the intellectual power is there, other than just, money, that kind of thing, which motivates most people in the other quarter. And the left has been along those. So they would be things. They would have read Karl Marx, and they would have read, socialism and everything, and be against the corporate interests and be trying to benefit for civil liberties and for the benefits of the least. They would have been the ones who would have led toward the abolishing of slavery and giving women the rights and these kind of things.
In your experience, the left rejects the idea of not having corporations make as much as they want. They reject that. They're okay with that?
No, yeah. Essentially, yeah. They're okay with the idea that they don't want that for themselves. All they want is a job. I mean, in terms of being real, they want, and this is they're for the workers, the people who actually work, and they're for the workers and the people who will be doing something on the estate of it's like a feudal estate. You had a feudal owner, and there would be people who would be doing something like serfs doing some function for massa on the estate, and that it's okay for them to own everything, and we're just serving, our job. We will do what we're told, and that's the attitude, and it's called the labor theory of value. And our labor is so important, and the ownership, maybe private property is an issue that has to be addressed. What we're going to need is something that's going to hoist that system that is running the world. We're very bad at trying to get some sort of a thing that is going to hoist that system on its own petard, in the words of William Shakespeare. There's going to have to be something where they're going to be coming at you with some right-wing thing saying how wonderful private property is. You're going to violate private property. You're going to tax us off you're going to tax it to take money we produce and give it to the people who are not, all of that. And they're going to have to be hoisted on their own petard. And I think for the people arguing for the people, they should be saying, no good. The way the capital is formed, the ownership of that capital has to be distributed to everybody as a means of distributing income, so that they're not only dependent upon a job in order to get income to buy food, rent, and so forth, because you're being confronted with the displacement of labor in the productive process, and you need an alternative way to distribute demand. And we're demonstrating now there's going to be a jobless recovery. There's trillions of dollars in the banks now, and they don't need people to produce things the way they did in the past. And the left doesn't have I think they're going to have to hoist the capitalist system on its own petard by saying, yeah, private property, accept it. But the thing is, the ownership of that private property has to be the capital accumulation.
More
or
distributed.
the capital. No, it has to be the ownership.
Yes.
Not through taxing and through some government agency like we think.
Of course.
And that is something the left can't abide, or the people. That's why they're hung up. They're hung up on the labor theory of value because it's been playing out through all the socialist things and that kind of thing. And I think it's a real problem. They have to come up with something, and I don't think they have it. I'm afraid it's going to lead to really bad circumstances, even for something as the Democratic Party, Mr. Obama and so forth, if they don't come up with something, because they're not going to be able to do it through jobs. They're not going to be able to distribute it through jobs if they keep a private sector, going. That's my own thought.
Yeah, well,
We're,
that sounds like correct because, well, the machines are taking over, right?
Yeah.
More and more machines are doing
it
more and more.
started
work.
with the club.
So there's no job.
It started with the club.
Because the machines are doing the job.
No, it's the extension of consciousness. And that's a private, and then you could say, well, there should not be, everything should be owned by everybody, and a lot of things should and everything. But what happens is you've got the technology, and it's going now exponential, Posr. It's coming up like this, coming hyperbolic, and it's going exponential.
No, but you speak of the an extension of the consciousness. What exactly?
Well, that's the use of tools. The first tool was probably a club. Hey, I can hit you. And then there's power. And then there's the ability to make the environment other than in an Eden-like sense is given and accepted throughout a lifetime or a species in a steady state. It's accepted, but we can make the environment other than in an Eden-like sense. That's unique to Homo sapien in a sense.
Even this, the distribution of wealth through ownership. You know, I can envision somebody who comes up and they says, you know, I want to sue XYZ because they've just got too much.
Well, that would go ahead. Yeah, spell it out. Yeah.
And so this person who wants to sue XYZ company to limit because of some wrong that they've done.
Yeah.
Right? They had all this money and they bought all the water.
Right.
They're thirsting out
Chinatown, the movie. Yeah.
And so this person sues. Now, can you imagine how that would actually play out? This person, the corporation would be saying, well, I can just do whatever I want. It's my money. I made it.
Right.
Whereas
and don't you tax me?
Yeah.
Why should you? Yeah, right. That's it.
Right.
You can understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Now here's the other side of the coin, saying, wait a minute, the only way you got that is from everybody's collective work, and there's no reason why you should be, just king of the ownership hill. Okay?
Right. Well, but they haven't said that. They don't say that. They don't say, they want to, the left wants to eliminate, or at least Karl Marx, they would say the evil institution that creates inequity in the world is private property, private ownership. It should all be owned collectively. We should all be part of the commons. We should all have a thing, and that we will get everything, and we'll do away with private property, collectivization, that communist thing. And all the world was talking about that in a very real sense. And the Soviet Union imploded. And it was the labor theory of value. They say labor creates what? Labor creates, in a ratio with other things. In Tom Jefferson's time, there was all kinds of resource and everything. Or when we were born into the world, all the resources were here. They were all here. All the copper, everything was here. We didn't know how to do it. But you get that. And then, they have that kind of a thing. And then in his time, it was only about 10% of the production was anything other than labor. And it's now gone, if you get charts and you do it in reasonable terms, and it's within a world scale where you're going to have private sector, real competition require you not to just make work. But it's going to come like this. It's now probably only about 10% of the actual production in the American economy has anything to do with what a human being does. But we're still in the idea, because people get their identity from what they do, but they're doing it. I mean, that's the trend. And it's become more and more, it's these capital instruments are what is producing wealth, and it's all owned by a tiny class. And the left doesn't get the idea that maybe it should be like a cooperative or something, but it would get down to a title deed, a piece of private property by which you get income, not because you're working or because you punch the clock or do anything.
Just because you're a human being?
No, because you have a piece of stock owner. Let's say they got a combine. They get a combine now. It moves across Kansas, hundreds of square miles, producing 10 billion barrels of wheat. And there's not even a driver. It's now just a program that drives the combine across, and it creates all this stuff. It's all done automatically and everything. Not a single piece. You can't possibly indicate that, if you got if you got a piece of ownership of that, left nut on the 10th wheel or something like that, you got a piece of ownership in that entity that does that, then you'd get money for that. Money come to you.
Yes.
Money should come to everybody, not for what they do, but because of what they own. Now, that doesn't sit well with the left. They want to have it all government, or they want to tax those who produce it. They'll tax the fellow who owns the combine in order to distribute to make public schools and things through the government. So that's a dynamic we have. But the trend is for the actual production to become increasingly...
As the jobs fall, people are going to have to think in a...
Well, that's what we're being forced to now.
Yes, yeah.
We're being forced to that now.
Yeah.
And that is the progressives are.
Yeah.
The policy grounding statement for the United States is the Employment Act of 1946. We will distribute income to the masses through jobs. Everybody talk. You want to listen to television now? Got to get jobs, 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 jobs. You got to have something for them to do to justify them having money. Meanwhile, all the production is being owned by a tiny group, and they accept that because they don't want to be able to be having anything to do with an evil institution like private property. And those people, they're going to have to hoist the whole system. They're going to be saying, you're going to have to hoist them on their petard. They're going to have to take them and say, you're right and everything, but just the way the capital is accumulated will have to be for everybody rather than for a few. And they're just blinkered, in my view, on this labor theory of value because they got their identity wrapped up in it.
When the jobless rate rises, people will become more receptive to other models.
It's going to be very difficult because Lord Keynes said that. He was a major one, set up everything after the Second World War and in the Depression. He said the generation, in 1930 he wrote, the generation is going to be confronted, that in their maturity is going to be confronted with something very hard to fathom, technologically induced unemployment. The means of production are not needing people. And that's the only way we distribute income. And you'll hear all the politicians, we got to get jobs, shovel ready, all kinds of jobs. You got to get something for the old darkies to do out there in the back 40, instead of them only having an ownership stake, which gives them, because you know what that would do? If you set up, think 100 years out, are we still going to be worrying about how we're going to get a piece of bread or something? If we survive and don't blow it all up, that would make somebody be independent to do what they want to do. That would be like called freedom, real freedom. We're economic serfs. We're economic serfs and slaves.
They own part of that combine.
Yeah, and the left accepts it. The leftist accepts it. That's an evil institution. We've got to get rid of it. And they thought they were going to get rid of it entirely, like in the Soviet Union or something, and then the good guys, who would be the politicals who would run everything, nomenclatura, they would make it good and be just and everything. And so that's an argument. But we're coming, yes, sir, what's going on? What happened? What are you holding up? I can't see, Fred. What? Just tell me.
Cameras.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah,
okay,
we should
right.
be,
okay, we're
at some point.
I'm sorry, we got off on this. The cameras in the court,
yeah.
and we have one of the things is so you got a real problem coming up in terms of corruption is seen, and there's going to be more and more trouble if the rate goes. It's going to go. And you're going to start having body searches. It's not going to be just Al-Qaeda. There's likely to be a militia and thing that will arise here because there's going to be a forcing of that until they get to it. And the justice system is one of the institutions, the legal system is one of the institutions we have to be involved with. And all of them are coming under challenge, it seems to me, as I see it. It's a paradigm. Education's out of sync. Everything is out of sync with what the future requires. But given that, we have to subsume it, and we have to deal with the legal system, and we want to bring some justice to a great deal of injustice being done within the legal system, and cameras in the courtroom could help.
Well, it's really a problem of raising consciousness. That's the you know, the way I see it is the consciousness level is just not, the creative thought level is just not, because the information is out there. Mm-hmm. And where cameras in the court come in is that when you see two entities in a courtroom, you know, battling out, you know, serious issues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not like this what you see on TV. he took my $50
Yeah.
and
Judge Judy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but I mean serious issues.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, I understand.
like the black farmer issue.
Right, big. Yeah, it went good in their direction. I think
Yeah,
recently.
it did.
I'm happy to hear that. Yeah.
But it may have gone even faster if people could actually have watched the court.
Thank you.
Stuff that happened
Right.
years ago.
Okay.
You wouldn't even have had to have the Senate do it because the pressure, the truth and the reality of it would have been so powerful. They just would have moved of their own volition because they don't want to be embarrassed. That's what the system is very susceptible to embarrassment. Embarrassment weakens their authority. You know,
it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
weakens
Public
their
relations, in a sense.
Exactly.
Concerns, yeah.
So, but that's what the camera does. Which, that's why the cases that I've always wanted to do, I couldn't get them in.
The cases you wanted to do.
Talk
about it a little bit. Yeah, because you've been involved in this for years.
I've been trying to get cameras in the courtroom since 1995.
Are there a lot of you around the country on that issue? Or
not that I see. You know, for some reason, people just don't get it. You know, they're not getting it.
Yeah, let's try and get it here. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what happens when you just like you put this TV camera in on this. We're seeing the intricacies of what we're talking about. People can weigh on one side or the other what each other is saying.
Like when we're walking through the world, multisensorial perception of the reality.
A multisensorial perception of reality.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the way the way you perceive the world. The media is getting us closer to the way we actually experience the world is extended. And we haven't had that available
at least with sight and hearing.
Well,
right?
sight and hearing. Yeah, and they'll probably have holography and things like that. It'll be coming.
Smells But let me just stay on the camera issue.
Please. Okay.
Because we're really what really in court is a battle of power.
Yeah.
You know, somebody's losing something. Somebody's trying to get something they shouldn't get, and somebody's trying to
get something they should.
They should get.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Now, the more the person gets who should get,
the more just.
The more just, and the higher the consciousness level raises.
Thank you. Okay.
Now, when there's no camera in the courtroom, let me just think of. I'll take the case of this guy I know by the name of Ben Cunningham.
Yeah.
The marshals were. His brother was a fugitive.
Right.
They go to his house without a warrant. They claimed there was some informant that told them that the brother was in his house.
Right.
Brother wasn't there. He comes in. Well, he was in his house.
Yeah.
Answers the door. They grab him out of his house, keep him outside, ransack his house. He finally gets to go back in. Gets very emotional because he sees everything all over. You know, they couldn't find his brother in the cups. Well, why are they looking in the drawers? His brother couldn't be hiding in there.
Right.
So they're going. He gets upset. His money.
Wonder.
They punched him in the stomach, cuffed him, sat him down. They go back to doing what they're doing. He runs out, runs into a bus full of transit police. I mean, makes contact. He tells them, look, these people in my house, they say they're marshals, blah, blah. The marshals come back, tell the guy who's the police head of the bus, because these are trainees, transit police trainees, but they, of course, have a sergeant or somebody who's in control who's actually a policeman. Tells them to drive off. Now, mind you, just right there, Ben hit the bus. That's an accident. Yet this marshal tells the police to drive off. That's leaving the scene of an accident.
It is, yeah.
So now, not only did the police leave the scene, the federal marshals left the scene.
Right.
They find nothing, they leave, 911's called, he goes and files a police report.
Right.
Comes back the next day because he wants to now go to the Crime Victims Board. Right?
I've heard of that.
Victim of a crime.
There should be that. They're shaking people down all the time. And it's very much racial.
That
80% of the shakedowns that they have in New York City are people of black and brown.
Well, I have a lawsuit in right now.
There ought to be a flooding of the police.
I have a lawsuit in right now because I was just walking along and some cop came and wanted my ID.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the way I was dressed, he probably thought I was a young kid, younger than what I, you know. But let me.
Because you're in such good shape.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm trying to. You know, health is another area that you know, like the raw milk farms. You know, a lot of people think milk's bad for you, but they are basing their concept on homogenized milk that's been pumped up with antibacterial agents, hormones, and so they go and they raid these raw milk farms. You know, now when they go to court, most people will never even get a chance. They won't even know the benefits of raw milk. I mean, people have been drinking raw milk
for a long time.
Quite a long time before it started
raw
getting
milk
homogenized.
Is just unpasteurized, right? Is that what it means? Yeah.
It's unpasteurized and well, they should be eating grass. Cows eat grass. That's what they normally. They don't eat grain. They eat grass. You know, and so they should be eating grass, and they shouldn't be lying around in their own feces.
Yeah, right.
Which is what.
You ever go to one of those chicken farms? It's awful.
Yeah.
It's just unconscionable.
You know,
I don't wonder PETA and everything. It's just they should be walking around in the meadow or something. You know.
Let me get back to the camera for a second.
Yeah, by all means.
Because you could extend the camera to the raw milk shakedown that's happening because the health is affecting the way people think.
All right. Yeah,
you know, if you don't got those antioxidants and those omega-3s in your brain, you are not going to send messages in your brain as well as if you have them.
That's right. It's a healthy, absolutely
This is
right.
where dementia and Alzheimer's come from.
Well, yes,
a lack of these actual nutrients in your. You know when they spray the food, and I'll get back to the camera. When they spray the food, they cannot sell that food for 30 days.
Is it, when they spray it in the growing, you mean?
Yeah, when they spray with pesticides. You cannot sell that food for 30 days.
Is that across the board, all food? They use a lot of pesticides.
Yeah, but you can't sell it for 30 days because the poison's too fresh. You think it's bad now. If you ate it before that 30-day period, so what's happening is the pesticides are actually destroying the nutrients of the food.
Why do they do it then? Why do they do it?
Well, it kills the bugs.
Yeah.
You know, and makes it grow bigger. And people are very visual. They see this.
I bought a tomato once. I ate it. I cut it. It looked beautiful, and it had absolutely no taste at all. It had no taste.
Yeah, well,
and
the
I
GMOs,
didn't have a cold or anything.
Here's a case where I would love to be able to bring Cameron on.
There was
a farmer doing GMO stuff, right? Genetically modified foods, and their the pollen went over and contaminated an organic farmer's land, and the organic farmer was caught with a copyright infringement on the GMO. There was no camera in the court where you could actually
show the seeds going through the air.
You know, where you could hear the organic farmer's argument saying, "Wait a minute, his stuff contaminated my stuff. How is it that I'm infringing on him when he contaminated me?" Right.
The books or the system is against the least advantaged among us. It's to support the, and like you have the camera can be a huge thing. Either
it would
still
level the playing
camera,
field.
What you can do with an iconic image, or what you can do like Rodney King.
No, you can't. The still
if
camera's
Rodney
not going to do
King
it.
had been beaten to bejesus out of him, and there was no video of him doing that, they would have had. Do you understand? That's the difference. The camera made all the difference.
All the difference.
So you got injustice, you got racism, you got all the rest of it. The camera should be utilized in a systematic way to bring greater justice to the people that come into the legal system, because the legal system is skewed to the favor of the well-to-do.
Right. So you need more power if you're not in the well-to-do class. You need more power to balance the corruptive influences that money can have on a judge.
I think it does, don't you? I think the system's corrupt in many, many ways. And it's inefficient in many ways, but it's just structurally corrupt. Corrupt in the sense of having a just social order. It is advantage to those who have the power.
Well, now you're getting back into that basic.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to.
You're not, but it
well, that's it. Everything's
connects.
Interconnected.
Yeah,
that's
it's all interconnected.
Yeah, it's all interconnected.
But what
the cameras in the courtroom.
But what the camera will do would level the playing field such that more people who should be, even under this corrupt system, more who should be getting what they should, like that organic farmer. Right.
Yeah.
It just bedazzles my mind how.
Well, why wouldn't well, suppose you had it written down. Or suppose you wrote down what he said.
Well,
you presented it as a document, and that's what the linear, print-oriented system wants.
You know what?
But it doesn't have the same effect as a picture or an actual.
I just had a conversation with the tech guy who was right in the studio, who was talking about a case where the judge told the court reporter, stop recording, stop stenographing. I think that's a word.
Stenographing. It should be. Yeah.
Stop doing that. While the judge went off on a tirade on.
But he didn't want it in the record.
He didn't want it in the record. You know, I don't know how many cases. You know DeAndre Murray.
Sure.
You know, she had a case where the tape recording in her family court case disappeared. Disappeared. I myself had a federal marshal on the stand because I did a year in jail behind trying to get a camera into Lynn Stewart's trial.
God bless you. Lynn Stewart's an angel.
You know, nobody saw that.
No, nobody saw what happened to you.
Nobody. Well, actually, what happened? He claimed that I chest bumped him. This is what the court officer claimed, that I chest bumped him, right around the magnemometer area.
Did they have it on tape?
They got cameras all over the case. Here's a case with Lynn Stewart, right? They got extra security, yet they claim the camera wasn't working. Right? They claim the camera wasn't working.
Now, they could have just lost that film like Mr. Nixon lost the 18 minutes. You know, they can doctor it.
Well,
that's an issue.
You can doctor it, but you know what? When you do doctor it, there's like there's a line. You know, and if you try to doctor it, you could never get that line exactly right. You can tell if a tape has been doctored. You know, you can tell.
But historically, we haven't had that. It wasn't until 1860 where they had a photograph. I mean, historically, we haven't had the means of reporting on things other than through the written word or through immediate communication. And now there's all these systems that are going, and cameras are very important.
So this is the question.
And it should be in the courtroom. One example, if I could, I had a friend, Brian Lamb, who started C-SPAN, did a program with him. He had the same problem when he wanted to bring the cameras into the cable cameras into the House of Representatives. They were just saying it's going to just, you know, probably the things you all hear in the court when they object to cameras in the courtroom, so that you get a more accurate reading of what's actually going on with nuance and all kinds of things with the camera. But in the court, you can't do it. You got
what I think is the people who objected to C-SPAN doing that, they didn't want the country seeing them standing behind positions that they knew were incorrect.
Right. Well, then that's things like earmarks and things you don't want people to know. And somebody said once, watching legislation is like watching sausage being made. You don't want to see it. That kind of thing. There's things that are being done under the table. You know, it's corrupt.
Even the arguments.
And they don't want that
Even
available.
the arguments that are being used by. How intellectual is this argument?
Okay.
Cameras are going to come into this court over my dead body.
Okay.
There's nothing that is a Neanderthal argument.
Yeah, right.
Yet, a Supreme Court justice made that statement.
U.S. Supreme?
Yes, U.S. Supreme. That was, he's off the bench now, but I forget his name. But that was his statement, over my dead body. I didn't see, in all the response to that statement, I never saw anyone challenge the lack of intellectuality of that statement. No one called it like a Neanderthal reaction. Nobody called it, I don't know, tyrannical.
Okay, let's talk about it. We only got about 10 minutes left. But he had that trouble, and then he had a hell of a time getting it in the Senate. Now they call it the jewel in the crown of the cable industry is that they bring C-SPAN to everybody with all kinds of stuff, and it's widely accepted. What's happening with the courts? And why are the courts specifically not allowing cameras in the court? And what do you think is a major issue?
That
it shows a reality.
That's the fight. That's the fight. That's where people actually weigh the evidence.
That's
of what
right.
is actually happening.
That's where this rubber hits the road.
And that's what the judges don't want the people to see, because because judges many times have to do some really crooked things in order that the wrong person comes out on top. Denying evidence,
right.
making, you're in the jury, I'm the judge, I'm sitting here, and unpopular defendant or litigant is standing, and while that unpopular defendant is talking, I'm that's not on the record.
Right.
But you as a juror are watching me as the judge, make faces like that.
It's a nuance. Yeah, you can pick it up with the camera. You can't do it on print.
You can't do it with the print.
Yeah, exactly.
Not only that, I had Peter Fokianos on the witness stand.
Yeah.
These guys in the court security, they have these blue blazers. They're not marshals.
Yeah.
They are private contract security. They're not marshals. They have contracts.
Right.
And I asked them, and actually their contracts say that they cannot represent themselves, especially as Special Deputy United States Marshals. Peter Fokianos got on that stand and said he was a Special Deputy United States Marshal. Actually pulled out a badge and said, see, it has the blue in it. When I got the transcript, it wasn't there.
I'll be damned.
It was not there. If I had a camera, I would have that statement. That's
now, what is it? Is it there? Suppose there are some people, like every specialization, if you want to try to talk about a tonsillectomy, the specialists on tonsillectomy can go into all kinds of details about this and that. Same with the legal. The legal system is very complex. It's like Byzantine and everything. It can be, there's rules of law, there's certain understanding
procedures
that people simply can't understand it. Every specialist thinks the people can't understand the arcane special knowledge they have of a particular thing.
Absolutely
so, do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely
I know,
false.
but I'm saying
that's what people say. Well, that was one of those Supreme Court arguments too. They said people won't understand what's being said.
Right, the poor little dears. Yeah, right. Okay, but that's the attitude. Is that the attitude of people within the judiciary? Or if you say to somebody, "Can you if you're revealing the truth," they will say that, you understand what I'm trying to say is that the specialist never wants to be questioned by anybody or anything that's going to reveal to the public or get them involved because they don't want interference from the public. They would like it. The police would have liked it if there was no film of Rodney King.
Yes, they would have loved it.
They would have liked it because they could have gone on. So people that are working with a system that isn't working or is shady or is complex or can't be understood, all of those things want to be hidden from the scrutiny of what we're able to communicate about them, and that's one of the issues on cameras in the court.
The reasoning. All the reasoning.
What is the reasoning?
The reasoning is all like, the lawyers are going to grandstand.
That's exactly what they said about Brian.
But that is not a legal argument. That's like some psychological, as a matter of fact, how can you get in? Lawyers have been grandstanding for ever since there have been lawyers.
The beginning of ever,
The camera's not going to make a lawyer grandstand any more or any less. That's just what they do. They have to do that to try to persuade the jury.
They did that big time about C-SPAN, and now it's celebrated. That's the point I'm trying to get.
Yeah, now it's celebrated.
Is C-SPAN able to get into the courts? Is there
they are
into the legal system?
In some courts, even in New York State, there's a law supposedly against cameras in the court, but the judges routinely let the cameras in whenever it makes the government look good.
Okay, talk to that. There's a law that no cameras in it. What do they say when they say no camera? What is the reason that they present?
Well, that law is Civil Rights Law 52.
No, what's the reasoning behind it? There's no camera in the courtroom.
They said because a person who is compelled to give testimony, well, no person who's compelled, no person compelled to give testimony can be filmed. That's what the law said. Now, it was based on the City Bar did a little writing on it. This is way back in '52, and what they claimed was that the flash bulbs would be distracting to the participants of the trial, even though the television camera doesn't have flash bulbs. They actually said that was one. That was one. They also said it might make the person less free to testify.
Those are things that they said to Brian too.
Yeah. Every argument that I'm sure Ryan heard.
Is the ball coming down? Is the wall coming down?
It's coming down slowly.
It took him a long time.
It's coming down very slowly because people are independently bringing cameras in. I know up in Canada, you know, there was a journalist who wanted to bring a camera into the Supreme Court, and they were having some argument. And so it's happening a little more.
Yeah.
But people don't recognize the systemic power of bringing the camera into the court. I mean, lawyers are sleeping. Right? There was a guy on a death penalty case. Lawyer was sleeping through part of the case. They called it harmless error. But could you imagine if the camera was there watching him sleeping?
Yeah. It reveals reality more. Rodney King comes to mind, other things like that. And that's something, there people don't want the reality revealed.
Some
because
don't.
the reality, some don't.
It's
Maybe
bad for the system.
It's bad. That's like they don't want the truth to be known because they are, the poor dears just wouldn't understand that we have to give all this money to this guy.
But when people see it, then what you get is the TSA pat-down effect.
Yeah, there you go.
You get that. You get that same effect
right.
when people see when millions of people see a gross injustice.
Yeah.
You get the TSA pat-down effect, and that is what the judges don't want, and the politicians who put the judges in the positions that
so in
they're
a very real sense,
and the corporations who put the politicians in the position to put the judges in the position. So it's the corporations that are actually afraid of this sort of rise in consciousness that would happen if everybody could see what was happening.
All right, that's right. That's that's a very real thing that gets back to the existential thing and the ranks that's in the air and it's all over the place because we don't have a system. I would suggest the system in place, and that includes virtually all of our institutions, have to be questioned fundamentally at a systems level rather than the adoptions that have been made in order to accommodate what's coming out of history. The Fugitive Slave Act had to be had to be subsumed into a new order, and we don't have an order in place on the world or national level that the future requires at a systems level, and because of that, there has to be seemingly cover-up all over the place, and you can't have that reality revealed. Because we don't have a system that is adequate or to bring justice or to an appropriate way of the world being
when
organized.
The justices said, when the arguments for corporations donating as much money as they want to,
that was Supreme Court.
Who saw that?
Yeah, right.
You know, who saw that? Nobody even saw the arguments. They just saw the result, but they didn't actually see some corporation guy saying, we're a person. We are a person.
Well, that's assuming then that the system is inadequate. There's something about the system that's either corrupt or inadequate or something, and that's an inevitable result of seeing the operation of the thing. The reality is inadequate to what we need. There aren't vision. The use of it can be used by the media or by filmmaking and that kind of thing in order to advance a certain view of things. But the leadership or the system and the institutional structures aren't adequate to what's required. I think that's being felt very firmly now in terms of the broad world society. And we need something new, and we don't have it at a political, economic, philosophical, intellectual
the cameras are actually the most peaceful tool for social change that I have been able to because you've got power changing hands.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for all the work.
I usually don't shake hands, but I'm gonna. This is just for the show.
You don't shake hands because of the bacteria or something?
You know, somebody went to the bathroom, didn't shake their hands, and then you touched it.
Oh well, all right.
And I get ill. I get ill when.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, so that's why I don't. But
thanks for the work.